Hey top driver, welcome to this new video. Today we'll explore setting advanced calibration and Fanatec wheels for F1 2024. Watch the whole video closely to grasp the theory behind each wheel parameter, then adapt them to your needs. Remember, these settings are subjective. Once you understand each parameter, you can adjust as you like. But before we start, I have a crucial point to make. While setting up your wheel correctly can improve your driving pleasure and smoothness, don't believe those who say a high-end wheel will automatically fix your driving issues or make you faster. Sure, compared to a basic wheel without force feedback, a Fanatec can give you more realistic feel, improving your performance. But compared to a good belt-driven wheel, the difference is much smaller. Also remember, these are more complex devices which might be challenging for beginners to handle. Another point to consider is that while a high-end wheel enhances the driving experience, making it more fun, it's not the main factor in your track performance. You are the real star of your own performance. The key is to focus on improving your driving techniques and overall skills. Be aware that the wheel won't teach you proper braking, best racing lines, optimal acceleration, or track usage. These are universal driving principles you must know and apply yourself. Now, let's dive into the main content of the video. I'll guide you through setting up a Fanatec wheel for F1 2024, detailing in-game and wheel control panel parameters. You'll learn to adapt these settings to your wheel and driving style for maximum enjoyment and experience. Let's start with F1 calibration settings and what we can adjust. There are dead zones. A dead zone, if set above 0, nullifies wheel, acceleration, or brake input up to that value. For example, if you set a dead zone to 20-30 points, you'll notice that slight steering or pedal inputs won't register. This immediately shows you how the dead zone works. Some drivers use a 4-5 dead zone, which is terrible. We need to be reactive and explosive in certain race situations. It's different if we have an issue with pedals or steering wheel, then maybe you can set 2 points max, but otherwise I recommend leaving everything at 0 and fine-tuning other parameters if needed. Linearity reduces sensitivity. It affects the initial input of an action, like starting to steer, accelerate, or brake. It's as if the start of pedal travel or initial steering is less intense, less sensitive than normal, more linear. So if you find the brake and throttle too sensitive, increase linearity slightly. The same applies to steering. The first few degrees will be less sensitive and easier to control. But be careful not to overdo it, as too much linearity means a less responsive car. Stay within certain limits. I advise never exceeding 10-15 points of linearity. Saturation. Saturation is essentially the opposite of linearity and increases the sensitivity of certain inputs. By increasing this value, the software registers more input than the actual physical pressure applied. For example, if you're pressing the gas pedal 50% with 0 saturation, the software will read 50%. If you increase saturation, the software will read a slightly higher percentage. So gradually increase saturation to adapt it to your driving style by adjusting the values. This might help in braking if you notice you're not braking enough during the trail braking phase, or in acceleration if you realize you're too gradual and rarely oversteer even when trying to push it. In such cases, you can increase the saturation points a bit, but guys, 2, 3, 4, 5 points max, or you risk sudden input and potential loss of control. Create and save presets, noting changes to find what works best for you. This will improve your driving experience and comfort level in F1 2024. Now let's talk about force feedback. Force feedback, settable from 0 to 150, conveys all car sensations while driving. It's highly subjective. Some prefer hard feedback, others softer. It varies per user. In F1 2024, harder feedback increases sensitivity even to small road shoulders. Heavy force feedback can tie your hands in long or wet sessions, where frequent steering adjustments are needed. Strong force feedback can cause abrupt steering, slowing our driving. Softer feedback improves stability, with gentler forces for slower, precise driving, especially on curvy or bumpy roads. However, heavy force feedback can overwhelm, making it hard to sense what's happening beneath the wheels. It's crucial to find the ideal setup for your driving style and preferences. Track effect. The track effect, adjustable from 0 to 100, regulates force from the circuit to tires, including asphalt roughness, and is It's advisable not to go overboard with this value as it could cause artificial reactions of the steering wheel, reducing the car's control. Curb effect. The curb effect adjusts the intensity of the force transmitted by the force feedback when crossing a curb or bump. Some curbs should be avoided while others are essential for a good lap time. Keeping the curb effect low, around 10 for example, helps maintain the car stable while crossing a curb, thus reducing the micro-steering adjustments needed to maintain car control. Off-track effect. The off-track effect should be kept low, although this is also a subjective parameter because it conveys exactly all the information that occurs when the car is off the track. So if it's set too high when going off the track, the car will tend to disassemble much more, increasing the risk of spinning and making the steering wheel sensations too strong. Steering wheel rotation. The steering wheel rotation, adjustable from 180 to 620 degrees, has a standard base of 400 degrees. This value corresponds roughly to 360 degrees on F1 2023 and is probably among these settings both the most subjective and the most important, because finding the right steering angle that gives us the right feeling of being brisk and responsive but not too abrupt is crucial. I recommend keeping it between 380 and 420 degrees, avoiding extreme values. Higher rotation values mean more steering input for turns, while lower values make steering more responsive. What does this mean? Higher values improve precision and smoothness but may feel slower and less responsive. Lower values, on the other hand, allow for more immediate inputs, helping with direction changes and steering wheel realignment. This is because we have fewer degrees to straighten, allowing us to get straight wheels quicker and accelerate sooner. The downside is you need to be extremely sensitive when driving with a low steering angle, as the car becomes highly reactive to even the smallest inputs. I recommend testing on various circuits. You might prefer a wider steering angle on some tracks, while lower values might work better on others. The only way to find out, guys, is to get on the track and test it yourself. Steering wheel damper. The steering wheel damper, adjustable from 0 to 100, regulates wheel resistance when tires are under pressure or slip during hard braking. Increasing this value will make steering feel more resistant. This can have both benefits and drawbacks. On one hand, it can better communicate tire behavior, but if we set it too high, it might make corner entry more difficult and filter feedback. Certain sensations are crucial for speed and consistency. Alright, top drivers, after reviewing F1 parameters, let's discuss those related to the wheel's motor base. Ensure you've understood all previous information. Mastering these concepts will give you a significant edge over rivals. Driving a comfortable car is key to achieving your desired performance. Now let's figure out how to set up your Fanatec wheel. To modify Fanatec settings, access the Control Panel app you downloaded with the wheel. The app interface shows areas like wheelbase, steering, pedals, and gearbox. We advise against using H pattern or sequential shifters. Let's look at the adjustable parameters on the steering wheel. Sensitivity, or sense, controls the maximum steering angle. Guys, this must match the value you entered in F1 settings. I mentioned the max steering angle rotation earlier, so the same applies here. Lower value means more responsive, higher value gives more precision and smoothness. So it's the same as the steering wheel rotation. Just remember to set it to the same value you have in F1. We also discussed general force feedback earlier. Obviously, the base can output more or less power. Try setting force feedback between 70 to 100% based on feel and F1 settings. Remember, this is an extremely subjective value. For steering calibration, try redoing it precisely to optimize performance. Next, we have natural dampening. What does it do? It dampens unwanted vibrations and oscillations. Increasing this value makes the wheel less prone to sudden turns. We recommend keeping it between 40 and 50. Natural friction. This simulates the mechanical feel, making the wheel heavier. We suggest keeping it off. Natural inertia. It mimics added weight when turning. We advise disabling it. Force feedback interpolation filter. INT. It smooths out the force feedback signal. RAW. It's best to keep this between 2 and 5. Then we have FFI. Force effect intensity. This enhances circuit details felt through the wheel. I suggest setting it between 70 and 80. Next we have force for spring, SPR, and damper DPR. These settings let you adjust force feedback. I suggest setting all to 100. We also have BLE brake lever indicator and shock. Keep these off. Then there's brake force, which sets the force needed to reach 100%. The higher this number, the harder you must push for max braking. This is subjective. Set a value soft enough to maintain performance. If we tire by lap 10 of 50 due to high force, we should lower it, yet keep it firm enough for explosive instant 0, 100 braking. So these should be our initial considerations. Next, we adjust the braking force to our liking, seeking maximum feel during brake release. This is crucial because a value that's too soft won't help us be precise, as it's far more sensitive to the slightest movements of our foot. Remember, this value is also highly subjective.